we've stumbled into this Bill Belichick discussion when we had planned to talk about the Jets and take it from there. But I like this conversation instead. There's going to be plenty of time for us to say what's wrong with the Jets. But as of right now, 2-6. Let's just keep it simple. Do you see any set of facts where they can turn this around at this point? Or is this just JETS, just end the season, and we figure out which week Aaron Rodgers kind of slips onto injured reserve and we never hear from him again, at least not in New York?
It's easy to say no way, but there is a way. We talked about it last week. There's a way they could get a little better. They could get a little better, and that would require new head coach, interim head coach. I think does he still have the interim title, or is he head
he's
coach?
Interim. He's definitely interim. No, he's
very interim.
Yeah. 0-3, you're very interim.
They've underlined the interim every week. Okay, and there's another underline under interim. But if Jeff Ulbrich says, I'm not the defensive coordinator anymore, I've got to throw everything I have into just making sure we're together and that I'm taking care of all of the details that, for example, we're not burning all of our timeouts in the first quarter of a game, which I've never seen before, Mike. In the first quarter, they burn all of their timeouts. So if Ulbrich says, I'm going to stop being the DC, I'm going to turn it over to somebody else, that's the play caller, and I'm going to make sure that the whole thing doesn't fall apart because we have the talent. We have the talent to win these games. We don't have another game with New England, but we do have another game with Miami. We could beat them. We've got some teams on our schedule where our talent is greater than theirs if we can just tighten up the operation. So even though it's really easy to just pounce on the Jets and say the Jets are going to jet, I think there is a slight chance that they could turn this thing around. Slight.
The problem is they have, for the second time this year, the Sunday to Thursday turnaround. That's a rule change the NFL made last year where it will expect teams, not all of them, but some of them, to play on a Sunday and then on a Thursday. We saw week 2 to week 3. Their last win was that Thursday night game. Week 3, that feels like a long time ago. This Thursday night, they have the Houston Texans coming to town. And it occurred to me last night, Michael, and it originally was just kind of like this fanciful, weird idea that, like many other fanciful, weird ideas do, they just kind of pop into my brain. But if they lose convincingly on Thursday night, prime time, everybody watching, and fall to 2-7, okay?
Don't say it.
You don't know where I'm going to go.
If
they lose, okay, and this is the other if, and this is a big if. If a starting quarterback on a contending team gets injured this weekend, does Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, go to Aaron Rodgers, the general manager, and ask for a trade to that team that all of a sudden needs a starting quarterback? That's the bigger if. Losing to the Texans is the smaller if. The bigger if is contending team, final slate of games before the trade deadline, loses starting quarterback a la Jason Campbell on the Raiders in 2011, which blew the doors open for a Carson Palmer trade. So it's not unprecedented. If that would happen, does Aaron Rodgers get traded to that contender? I think at some level he'd want it. I don't know that he'd want to ask for it, but at a certain level he might want it. It's his way out. It's his way to try to finish his career with a positive note. He's not, riding off into the sunset as a champion. He's just kind of disappearing into the mist. It's an ugly way to go out. And the quote from Davin Godshaw from the weekend about how Rodgers looks and how it's going. I mean, he pitied Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants pity to be his final memory of his time in the NFL.
I've got the perfect team. They would want him. He'd want them. The Minnesota Vikings.
No.
How about it, Mike?
No.
Wouldn't you just say,
no.
What have I done? What have I done to deserve this? Why is this happening to me at this stage of my life? Why do I have Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback for my team? Why?
I really do think at this point, any team that would suffer the season-ending injury to a starter, a contending team, you just go next man up. And there's just too much baggage right now with Aaron Rodgers. And I just think that when you compare current skill level with all the crap you got to deal with, it's like Belichick. Yeah, if you're great and everything's going well, we'll deal with the other stuff. When the performance starts to slip, we're not dealing with the other stuff. And I can't imagine there's a team out there, based upon everything we've seen and heard from Aaron Rodgers the past couple of years, and it's all about him. And I could go on, and maybe I will. But I don't think there's another team that would say, if their starting quarterback goes this weekend and they're stuck, like the Vikings were a year ago yesterday. That was the anniversary of the Kirk Cousins thing, and they had to start searching high and low for a quarterback. If someone gets in that spot, I don't think they're going to want to bring the Aaron Rodgers show to town.
No, in all seriousness, I thought you were right. I didn't know where you were going with that, and you started talking about the Texans and Jets, because I thought you were going to say, if they lose convincingly Thursday night at home to the Texans, a better team with equal talent, but a better team, I would say, hey, what if they moved on from the interim? Would they be crazy enough to move on from their interim coach and have their third head coach of the season? But even the Jets wouldn't do something like that. But it could. This is they can lose. I expect I will pick them to lose the game. They can lose the game, but it's got to look a certain way. It's got to look a certain way. If they lose by a field goal at the end, all right, maybe you can keep this thing together. If they get blown out on national TV Thursday Night Football, we haven't seen the ugliness. We haven't seen it all. It can get a lot uglier.
No, it is a mess, and it all traces to ownership. Dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things, and bad owners result in bad teams. And this is what Woody Johnson got impulsive. He made this decision. He made it clear. Usually owners run and hide from their decisions. He made it clear it was his decision 3 weeks ago today, and it's only been 3 weeks that Robert Saleh was out, and it has been a disaster. 0-3, and they were favored in 2 of the games. This is on the owner. Jets fans, if you don't like it, let the owner hear about it. The problem is, what can you do? Boycott your favorite team? That's where they got you. The only way you can make a statement to an NFL owner is to hit him or her in the pocketbook. Don't show up for the games. Don't watch the games. Don't buy the stuff. But when it becomes who you are, when it's so closely identified with the things you loved as a kid and you experience those strong feelings of nostalgia as an adult, there's so many things that go into it. You're not going to deprive yourself of something you love. That's where they got us, Michael, as fans. You're not going to deprive yourself of the thing you love, even if the owner of the team needs to sell it. There's nothing you can do to make it happen because you're never going to boycott that thing you love.
That's right. The only way out is what, and Gary Carter knows this very well. I said this to him the other day. The only way out is when the owner is pushed out or the owner decides to sell. He dealt with it. Gary did with the Commanders. And he had 20-plus years of Daniel Snyder, and you can't do anything about it. You're stuck until the owner goes. And it's the same thing with the Jets. You're stuck with Woody Johnson until he decides that he doesn't want to do it anymore, and doesn't sound like he's there. But one more question about the Jets. When Jeff Albrecht turned the play-calling duties over to Todd Downing, didn't he say, hey, it's the style. He liked the style that Downing had, and they were physical. His teams were physical, and they ran the ball, and they left their mark on opponents. Where's that? Where's that offense? So you say that, but then you go out and trade for Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers' right hand, and so you know what's going to happen there. It's going to be, okay, we need to get Davante Adams involved. And I love it. It's not a anti-Davante Adams take. It's the opposite. It's your identity is not what Aaron Rodgers thinks it should be, or even what Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams think it should be. You don't have a quarterback who can run around like he used to. He can't do the things that vintage Aaron Rodgers could do. So you probably have to come up with a different identity. Maybe their identity is using Breece Hall and Braylon Allen and having a punishing running attack and doing something like that, because what they're doing on offense just does not work and is not scaring anybody. The Patriots The Patriots are so bad defensively, and they had no issues. They had no issues with the Jets. And as Godshaw said, they didn't have any problems. They weren't afraid of Aaron Rodgers running around. So their offensive approach is not the way to go.
And I'm surprised they're not screaming at us to break because we're already 10 minutes over what was allotted for this segment. We do need to go. But I want to say this, because this was one of the most overlooked comments coming out of Week 8. Aaron Rodgers actually said that we want to score 30 points a game. Not 30 points in the game against the Patriots, 30 points in every game. That's the goal. If we're not scoring 30, we're underachieving, and this offense can do that every single week. They haven't done it yet this year. They haven't scored 30 points yet this year. So you're talking about, a grinded-out offense that's complementary football, and you got a quarterback that thinks they're going to score 30 points every single game? It just gives you an idea of where that dysfunction is. And it all starts at the top. The mad scientist who decided to pull the coach out 5 weeks in and bump up the defensive coordinator interim coach, he's the one to blame. And it's a mess. And it's kind of fun to watch if you're Bill Belichick or others who like watching dysfunction play out. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.